Let's learn about literal equations. If we take a look at the name, it looks like a literal equation is a type of equation. And that's right. Now, an equation identifies a relationship between the left and right-hand sides of the equal sign. Now, to help us see a literal equation, let's go ahead and explore some equations. So let's write a few equations down. Let's say we have this. X plus 8 equals 12. This is an example of an equation. We have a left and a right-hand side of the equal sign. Here we're saying that x plus 8 is equal to, or the same as 12. We're saying that the left side is the same as the right side. Now, we can also have something like this. 7x equals 21. Here we're saying that 7x is the same as that right side 21.
Don't write this yet for your
Or we could even have an equation like this. Y over 2 plus 5 equals 7. This is another example of an equation. Now, all of these are typical equations that you might see. But there are also some other equations that you might see as well. Let's take a look at those. Let's say we have 3x plus 2y equals z. Here we see we do have an equation, but it's a little bit different from the ones we just saw. Notice, this equation has three variables, x, y, and z. All of these equations only had one variable. Now what if we had an equation like this? D equals r times t. This is another equation. But notice, this one just has variables. Three variables, and no numbers. Or what if we had something like this? A equals 1/2 times b times h. Here again, we have more than one variable. Now, each of these equations that has more than one variable gets a special name. These equations are called literal equations. A literal equation is an equation that has more than one variable. So, each of these equations that has more than one variable is called a literal equation. Now, to help us gain a little better understanding of these literal equations, let's go ahead and take a look at some more examples. The most common type of literal equation is a formula. So let's look at some of those. Here we have A equals L times W. We can see this is an equation where the left and right-hand sides are equal. And we have more than one variable, A, L, and W. So this is a literal equation. This is actually the formula for the area of a rectangle. In this formula, A stands for the area, L stands for the length, and W stands for the width. Now, usually with formulas, we're given values for some of the variables, and we need to solve for the unknown variable. So say here we were given the area and the width, but we were missing the length. Well, in that case, we could plug in the values for the variables that we had, and then solve for the unknown variable, like L. Neat. Now, we can also have one like this. I equals PRT. This is a literal equation. It's the formula for interest. I is interest, P is the initial amount that we invest, R is the rate, and T is time. Or we could even have a literal equation like this. P equals 2L plus 2W. This is the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle. P is the perimeter, L is the length, and W is the width. Now, we can also have literal equations that look like this. Y equals mx plus b. This is a literal equation. It's actually the slope-intercept form for a line. Neat. Or we can also have one like this. AX plus BY equals C. Another literal equation. This one is the standard form for a line. So now we know more about literal equations. If you have an equation that has more than one variable, you are looking at a literal equation.
So when we think about that, okay, what we want to be thinking about, literal equation, the main definition they said was what? Raise your hand. Audrey, go ahead.
An equation that has more than one variable.
An equation with more than one variable. Okay? We have been working with those, right? An equation with more than one variable. They said the most common ones are actually formulas, right? The most common literal equation is your formula. And they gave you some examples, right? They gave you A equals LW, L times W. They gave you perimeter was equal to 2L plus 2W. They gave you this one, which we're going to use a lot in our next unit, y equals mx plus b. And next year in algebra, you will use this one a lot, ax plus by equals c. All variables in 3 of these, 2 of them sometimes have numbers. And what you're going to be asked to do today is, as you look on that next page down in your notes, you see a bunch of other common formulas, okay? So as you look at all these common formulas, they kind of define what we're talking about. Perimeter, circumference, area, distance, degrees Celsius and degrees Fahrenheit, rate and time. So they kind of tell you, and they want you to think, are there other formulas that you could think of? Yeah. Like we could have other area formulas, right? We could have area of a circle, right? We have that one here. Could we have area of another figure besides rectangle and triangle? We could have trapezoids or other ones. We're not going to write any of those down. What I want you to take a look at is on the top of page 34. And on the top of page 34, please put your head up and sit up, please. Thank you. It asks us to solve that first formula for L, which means I have L times W, and if I want only L here, my goal is to get L equal and nothing else with the L. Right now I have it times W, so the opposite of multiplying by W on both sides is to divide by W. My answer is going to be, I like to put the L equals, you wouldn't have to, but these W over W, that's the same as 1. So I'm left with L equals A divided by W, and it's that simple. You might have one that simple on your test next week, right, or this week on Friday. But you might have one that looks like this one, and it says solve for W here. If we're solving for W, the first thing I need to do is get 2W by itself. I don't want a plus 2L. How do I get rid of a positive 2L, Levi? We're going to subtract 2L. Now, I can't subtract 2L from P, but I'm still going to put it on that side. 2L, not 2W. So I have P minus 2L equals 2W. Or, you could have written it this way, negative 2L plus P, right? Equals 2W. Does it matter which of these two ways I write it? I just have to make sure that that W, that in front of that 2L, that's negative. So my last step as I am looking at this, Ashley, is going to be, we want to find what 1W equals, so what would we need to do? If it's 2 times W. We're going to divide every term. So just like when you solve those y equals and the x equals, you're going to divide everything by 2. Because 2 divided by 2 gives me what I'm looking for, 1W. And I go over here and I put divided by 2. P divided by 2, I'm going to leave that as a fraction. Minus, what's 2 divided by 2 here? 1. So I can just put minus L. Because this 2 divided by 2 is 1. The question comes up is, could I leave my answer this way? Could I have had P minus 2L divided by 2? Is this the same answer as this one? And they actually are. This is the one I would probably prefer you to write your answer is, but you might see in the back when you're checking 14 today that they have it both ways, okay? Would I have done anything different over here? No, I would have divided by 2 and I still get these 2 different solutions, okay, these same solutions. All right, so on the top, or on that next screen down, again, solving literal equations. This is what you're going to be asked to do in your homework. So if we are starting off, Rowan, and we want to solve for M, that means I have M and X together. What do I have to get rid of that's with the M and X? So to get rid of a plus B, I'm going to subtract b. Once I do that, Aaron, I'm going to be left with what? On this side. Y minus b equals mx, okay? So Sam, I still want to find what m equals. What am I going to do? Divide by m. Now, in this one, since there's nothing that's going to simplify, can I put them all over m? Yeah. So my answer, when I'm taking a look at that solution, as I look at that answer, I am going to have y minus b over x equals m. Okay? So you kind of want to look if there's nothing that simplifies. I want you to go down to that bottom one, a equals 1/2 bh. We've been doing those fraction problems so much, Patrick, if I want to eliminate my denominator, what am I going to multiply by on both sides so I don't have to deal with fractions? 2. So I'm going to put 2 times capital A. The question I always get is, can I use lowercase a, or do I have to use, if it's capital, leave it capital. If it's lowercase, leave it lowercase. On this side, we're going to put 2 also, and we're taking it times 1/2 bh. So the 2 times 1/2, that's 1. So I now have this problem. 2a equals b times h. Hunter, I want to solve for h. And I have b times h equals 2 times a. Divide both sides by b. And I'm done. I get h equals 2a over b. So the thing that's hardest, and I'll tell you, the algebra students struggled with this also, it keeps coming up in algebra next year throughout the year that you have to solve for other variables. So right now my algebra students are having to solve for another variable, and they're going back and they're forgetting what they did, and this was their first unit, and when they did unit A. Next year when you're in algebra, they'll spend more time with these literal equations, hoping to make sure they solidify it really well before you progress through algebra. So we're going to take a look at this one. If we want to solve for h, I want you to think about what do we have to do first in this question. So if we are looking at this one, Rajad, I want to get this minus 2h by itself. What would I do? Say it one more time. I could, but I want to think of more getting rid of this 3g. Not divide, but I want it to be 0g. So instead of, so I have negative, I have 3g minus 2h, and I want this to be a 0 here. I'm going to minus 3g, and there's no g's back here, so I'm going to put it way back here, minus 3g behind that equal sign. As I write that, Jordan, what am I going to be writing? Say it one more time. 2h. Okay. And my last step, Kendall, would be then divided by 2. Now, there was an error made here. And here, since 2 can't go into any of these, I'm just going to put one big fraction with all this on top. But yeah. This is probably a really common mistake that a lot of you make. You forget that this has a negative in front of it. So again, my hint of changing things to plus and negative, because we want to divide by negative 2 as we are looking at that. So what does my answer look like if I look at that problem? I'm going to write it as k plus 7 minus 3g all divided by negative 2. Very ugly, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Grace, you ready to start this next one and finding what r is? Okay, divide by 2. That gets rid of the 2. Does that get the r by itself yet? What else could I divide by with the 2? The pi. What's pi divided by pi? 1. So the 2 over 2 cancels, and the pi over pi cancels, And because everything was being multiplied here, R equals C divided by 2 pi. Got to keep the pi symbol, okay? So it's ugly, right? As you do your problems, they're going to look ugly, okay? So your homework tonight is C14. I want to take a look at a couple of the problems because some of them are going to confuse some of you as you are looking ahead. So, problem 1, I think you're going to be okay, and maybe 3 and 5 and 7. But let's look at problem 2. We want to get rid of our fraction, right? And I want to look where the x is. And it's x divided by a equals y divided by b. What's the opposite of dividing by a? Abby? Multiply by a, and you're done with this problem. That's how simple that one is. It looks really ugly. You're going to take a, right, times x over a equals a times y over b. Now, some of you, when I noticed your quiz that I handed back, when you try to do this, you put this as 1 over a. I've noticed that on your quizzes. You don't want to do that. It's a over 1. Like yesterday's quiz, it should have been multiplying on both sides by 6 over 1, and some of you put 1/6. So those fraction ones, if I wrote a note on your quiz, so here, cancels, we're done. So you should be able to do this one. My hint on number 6 will be to do this. You are asked to solve for this one for the 6, tell us what to solve for x. Every single one of them here, you're solving for x. So if I'm solving for x, my hint would be put this in a parenthesis. X minus b divided by, is it b? So if I'm trying to get that x minus b by itself, as I look at the problem, Caitlin, what do you think I need to multiply by on both sides? I'm going to multiply by b. Because if I multiply here by b, right, that's like b over 1, that cancels my fraction, okay? So hopefully from that point you know how to proceed as you are looking